And so here we are live with Karina G. Sanchez, author of Leadership for the New Female Manager. And although we could conduct this author interview here on Amazon Live in several different languages, I think we're going to stick to English for this one.
Love that. English is good.
And I just want to say, Natalie started following us. So, Natalie, thank you. And welcome to this broadcast. Karina, we've had some good conversations, and I am really looking forward to the opportunity to talk to you more, to tell people a little bit about your background, about the journey, about the book. And of course, the book is highlighted in the carousel. And I'll just tell everybody that's listening, if you are somewhere other than Amazon Live, come on over to Amazon Live, amazon.com/live. Come on, join us. And the chat is open. So if you want to ask any questions to Karina, then please feel free to do so. And with that, Karina, let's have you just give a little bit of a background, tell people where you are in the world and what's going on in your world.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much, Scott. The journey, I feel like it's been just, long. I don't want to age myself too much. I'm not going to tell you how long, but it's been a while. I've been in leadership for about 20 years now, and it all started one day, back when I was working out in Silicon Valley, out in California. And I was leading some teams. And back then, as you can imagine, being a woman in technology, I think I was probably the only woman on my team. So lots has changed since then. But even back then, I was realizing some things, the way we lead people, it's a little bit different. The way we look at just in general, the way we look at things within organizations, we come from a little bit of a different point of view. And so it was very kind of lonesome, right, to be the only woman on that team. But I realized through that experience that I had a lot to offer. And so that experience took me in a little bit of a different direction. I went from sales into, teaching folks how to sell. And I loved the teaching portion, not so much the selling portion. After a while, you get a little bit of, just get a bit tired, right? So I went into teaching. I went back to school, did my whole, diploma, certification, became an adult educator. So the journey's been, I guess, dating sort of back to like the early 2000s. I moved back to Canada from San Jose, California, and I went into education, and I primarily went into the corporate world. And I've been doing a lot of different things, predominantly, facilitation. I've been training organizations, training the leaders within organizations how to grow, right? How to reach for the stars, how to develop their career, how to develop their skill sets. And part and parcel of that, of course, there's coaching, there's other consulting. I do a lot of talking. I love to talk. So how long do we have? Because I could go over an hour easy, but I do love keynote. So that's part of, some of the offers that I have. And I decided, through all of this, I need a book for women. I need to get into this market because through my coaching, one of the things that came out is that women are struggling in different areas. Right. I'll give you a quick example. I'm actually working right now with a bank here in Canada, and I'm in Toronto right now in Canada. And the folks that are coming out are saying, "Hey, Karina, we're having this issue. We're posting this amazing leadership roles, and none of the women that we know qualify for these roles. None of them apply. We only see, the fellows applying for this, and we're not understanding why." And so there is definitely a reason why that's happening, and it's happening more than we even like to admit. So I've decided, you know what, I'm going to put a book together because I'm doing a lot of this work, a lot of one-on-ones, and I need to just get the word out, right? Help people take their skill set to the next level so that it can help them move into the areas that they maybe kind of see themselves in, but don't have the courage to go for it. And that was the whole reason behind the book, Scott. So that's where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like the leadership in the corporate world is still a legacy from World War II. I
Yeah.
mean,
Mhm.
I don't know if there's any other way to put it, but that a lot of the folks that learned how to lead learned that in World War II, came and in the 50s, 60s, 70s, they were leading the organizations, and they were the ones who wrote all the books about how to lead. And so we thought that's how you do it.
Mhm.
But it was one way to do it. And also, because of that, it necessarily excluded the woman's voice.
Yeah, it excluded a big chunk of the population, right? And I sort of call this the legacy voices. I mean, it's great. I think leadership, it's definitely a skill set. It's not necessarily something we are born with. It's not maybe natural to a lot of us, right?
Mhm.
I mean, there are some folks who are definitely much more comfortable with leadership, but it is a skill set, right? There is a difference between a leader and a manager. There's definitely a huge difference.
Mhm.
And so managing folks is definitely different than leading them. Um, and I've been in both roles, right? I've been on both sides, I guess, of that same coin, and it is quite different. So I find that, and I mean, there's so many different ways that we can approach this, right? We are now kind of coming into an endemic, right? So we are post, almost, hopefully
Yes.
post,
Well,
right?
yeah.
Pandemic.
Mhm.
Um, there are different issues and challenges that are coming with that. One of the issues that we're seeing, and this is global now, Scott, is that leaders were under such a huge strain, right? A lot more than maybe even the teams that they were leading. So we divide those folks into, the leadership role, so people that you would manage, and of course the individual contributors, the folks that are contributing to the workflow. Now, what's happening is we sort of call this, the pandemic flux.
Mm.
We are having folks who have been in a lot of strain, under a lot of pressure. And now, as we are coming towards the end of this pandemic, so in this endemic moment, we are still kind of not there, right? So we're it's ending, but it's not really ending yet. And we're kind of
Mhm.
like one step forward, but maybe then two steps back. And okay, we're so things are opening, but oh my God, there are 16,000 cases. And so the movies, I can go, but I'm not sure if I should. So imagine this back and forth, right? Which creates a huge strain on the system, on the mind. Outside of this strain, which is now you're trying to balance what's happening in the world, you are balancing, especially as a woman, you're also balancing what's happening at home. So you still have a job that you're dealing with outside of your work, right? So you're maybe caring for children, you might have a spouse, you are still doing all these other things, and on top of that, you are responsible for a team. huge amount of pressure. And so what's happening is I'm seeing a lot of female leaders being affected by this more so than even the males. And there's one more caveat to this is the two groups through research, and you can literally look this up on Gallup. Gallup has done a lot of study in the last 2 years and has found out that there's two groups that are being really affected by this change, and that's women, so female leaders, and non-white males, which would really make sense when you think about how diverse our offices are, how diverse the companies are. So now we're dealing with other challenges, which of course, there's always challenges and awesome things that are happening in the office, but there's a lot of challenges as is. Now you're adding another layer to that, which is this sort of flux that we're going through. Women are beginning to, talk about mental health now, right? In a lot of my coaching sessions. So we have gone now beyond almost female leadership, and now we need to address that bit when we're talking to female leaders. So, okay, spoiler alert, there's probably going to be another book because, we can't keep up with how fast things are changing, right?
Sure.
So this is where we are at. So the book, when I started to have these conversations, and I'm having them throughout the pandemic. Don't remember that the book only came out a couple of months ago. So
Hmm.
all of my coaching and all of these sort of interviews that I have been doing with female leaders have been happening in the last 2 years. So I've been already seeing these effects. I've already been feeling them, these concerns. The mental health issues, the concerns for, how am I going to manage this? Am I actually going to be managing, this lifestyle that I have, this new norm? How do I lead my teams when I'm at home? How do I get my message across to these folks and make sure that they are doing what they need to be doing and they are developing in the right way? Imagine the strain and stress of all of this. So it's quite a lot. It's quite a lot. So the book addresses some of this and we touch on that, on those points. And of course, there's a lot more and a lot more in depth that we can go in with that,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, it's leadership and management. You mentioned that, and there is a big
Hmm.
difference. And I think it'll be comforting to people to know that leadership is a skill, that it can be learned,
Yeah.
that it's not just something that you're born with. Maybe you have more of an aptitude toward it, but it's just like everything. It's yeah, some people can run faster than others, but you can run.
Right.
And so it's a skill. You can develop it. You could be a better runner. You could be a better
Absolutely.
typist. You could have a better memory. I mean, there's a lot of things that we can grow. So I think it's going to be comforting for people to know. I just want to remind everybody that we have got Karina Sanchez here on Amazon Live, and we're talking about her book, Leadership for the New Female Manager. And it's highlighted in the carousel, so you can just click on it, and maybe this book is for yourself. Just talking to the audience here that maybe this book is for you. Maybe you know somebody who has just taken on a leadership role, has been promoted, is dreaming about being promoted. We're coming up to graduation, and I wouldn't limit this to just college graduates. So if you have a student that you know that's graduating from high school and is looking to go out into the world, having leadership skills as they approach into college would be a fabulous thing. Get the book. Here's the deal: on Amazon, click it, add to cart. You can have it sent directly to somebody. Put the address in there. Be the hero. I can't think of a better gift than books. Karina, as we're talking about the difference between leadership and management, and
Hmm.
I will just say it is easier to teach management than it is leadership, because we can go to a business 101 textbook, open up the management section, and it says plan, organize, lead, and control. And then we can define those and people can execute on them. But when it comes to leadership, we tend to teach by example. We tend to
Mhm.
look to great leaders, and you're like, yeah, great, but I'm not Gandhi. I'm not Mahatma Gandhi. I'm not, I'm not this great leader. I'm not Dr. Martin Luther King. Who, what works for me? And so I would like to learn from you, kind of, how do you work with new developing leaders to teach them these skills?
Such a good question, Scott. And it is such a great point that you brought up. And you actually are touching on something that I deal with quite a lot in the sessions, especially with the female audience. Here's There's no quick answer to that, obviously, but it is a skill, so that's a good thing, right? A bicycle, you're talked about riding, absolutely. You can if you can get on that bike and you can practice, you will definitely at some point be proficient. This is the same thing with leadership. Here's where I will ask, in my sessions with individuals, because it's important that leadership, it is very much, it's a very personal thing, right? um, we all have with different belief systems, we all have come with different cultures or come from different cultures, ways that we have been raised. And this the way we've been raised, it also affects the values that we have in our lives, right? Values are super important in leadership, because it actually is what gears you, what steers you in the type of leader that you want to become. So it really depends on what values do you hold dear. And one of the very first things that we do, or one of the very first activities or exercises that I have the folks that I work with do, is to figure out who they are. So, what are the things that they believe in? What are their values? Because management, as you've pointed out, you can read a few books and you're pretty proficient. All you have to do is you get to the office, you get to work, and you practice. Leadership is more about taking time to really understand what do you stand for, and how do you want to contribute what you know to the people that work for you or with you, right? Because think of yourself as the moment that you step into that office, and whether that's in person, whether that's physical, or via your computer, and the moment you open your mouth, uh, there you literally within 5 seconds, the person that you're speaking to has already made a judgment of who you are as a person. So, right from that moment, you are already projecting who you are as a person and what type of leader can you potentially be. People are already judging, right? The leaders that maybe directly report to the folks within your organization. So it's very important to sort of get still and get quiet and get really honest with who you are and what do you stand for. Because once you know, then you will lead from that place, right? So I almost think of it as a mantra, right? Like almost like a daily mantra. What is it that I want to accomplish today? And it's not about what you do, Scott, to me. And I find that the best leaders, the people that I've looked up to, my whole life, it wasn't what they did, it was how they did it. It's how they went about it. And I had an ex boss that I really enjoyed having this conversation with back in my past life. And he used to say, if you're going to get the job done and you're going to leave dead bodies behind, is that really the way you want
Hmm.
to be seen? Right.
Right. Hmm.
So it really boils down to that, right? How do we go about that? And then, of course, the best way to do this is to model, who you want to be based on the people that you look up to, the people that you would follow, whether they had a leadership title or not, right? You would follow them anyway. And I don't know if you've noticed, there's that big thing that we're talking about right now, which is the Great Resignation. I don't know if
Hmm.
that's a word that it's kind of all over
Absolutely.
social media, right?
Hmm.
What is the great resignation? In this moment that we are in, a lot of us have lost control and power, right? Because the pandemic was something that we couldn't control.
Hmm.
So, and I mentioned this actually in the book, the resignation, the great resignation is really all about gaining a sense of power and gaining a sense of control in your life. Right. And so a lot of people, they couldn't control what was happening around, right? The environment, but they were able to control small things in their lives. And maybe one of those things was their job, right? So we want to be able to inspire people to have control in their life as employees, right? Small little things. And this is where the leadership skills come in handy right now. So it's really thinking outside of the box a little bit right now.
Hmm.
What do we do to help the folks that we are, sort of in charge of or given the opportunity to develop, how do we help them do that better in the time that we are in?
I love that too, because you talk about titles, and leadership is not necessarily tied to a title. We often equate leadership with title. And, I have had those roles. I've been the chief executive or chief operating officer or general manager. I have had those roles and those titles, but the leadership is separate from the title.
Mhm.
And I believe that everybody has the opportunity for leadership at whatever level they're at. So if they have a leadership title, they have a C in their title, chief something or other, or if they're the administrative assistant or an intern, there are still opportunities to exercise leadership.
Yes. So what do we call that, right? That opportunity right there, what is that? It's a type of leadership. It's self leadership. This is
Mm,
why my book actually starts with section one, self leadership.
nice.
Why? Because we are all leaders, right? It
Hmm.
doesn't matter where we are at. And you've mentioned something great, which is the audience, right, for this book. You've mentioned, this is not only for maybe the brand new graduates, it's actually for those people. It is for early career leaders. It is people who are already in their mid career leadership as well. It's for male leaders as well, because the 21 strategies will help females as much as they will help males. That I've had a lot of male leaders come back to me and say, wow, you know what? I bought this for my sister, but like I read it and I could totally use this. Yeah, absolutely. Right. When do
Hmm.
you not pick up a book and learn something from it?
Hmm.
So it definitely applies to all. We need to be able to lead ourselves first, and the very first thing that is sort of on our plate, right, is being able to lead ourselves. We cannot dream of leading individuals or leading teams before we know who we are as leaders. And so
Hmm.
and I don't know if you've noticed, but in that first section, in the self leadership section, there's actually, I believe, three or four, maybe five different exercises that I have folks do, because it is that important that everyone starts to understand who they are first. So if you audience have picked up the book, or you're looking at it right now, or maybe you downloaded it off of Kindle and you see there's a few links in there, it actually will take you to the exercises and activities that you can do that will determine your leadership style. You have an activity there that will take you to your SWOT analysis, so that you can start to analyze what are your strengths, what are your sort of weaker spots, or I call them the gaps, right? Where do
Hmm.
you need to stretch a little bit, so that when you are maybe applying or thinking of applying for that next role, you can now start to think, okay, so in this area, I feel like there might be a little bit of a gap. What do I need to do to get myself up to speed?
Hmm.
Can I, job shadow someone? Can I talk to my leader to figure out, where do I develop? Do I take a course? Maybe I need to read a book, or maybe, there is something else that I need to do. So it will start to the book is the way it's written. It's actually, it takes you step by step, right, through, right from the beginning of what needs to be, what you need to look at for yourself before you can even move into those people leading roles, because now you're going to have people under your belt. Now you're responsible for other people's lives, right? And I take that very, very seriously, because
Absolutely.
you have to, right? People
Hmm.
want, people are in organizations, they work for different
Hmm.
organizations so that they can develop, right? And develop is really important. So if you're not developing yourself, it's really tough to be able to help people develop.
I love that responsibility. When I was general manager for an upholstered furniture company, and we had 150 employees. And it was a typical factory. You had the offices in the front, and then you had the factory in the back. And so people would come, and of course, they'd walk into the offices, and we'd talk, and then I'd take them upstairs, and then we'd go out onto this deck where we could look out over the whole factory.
Nice.
And you got 150 people out there. And I love that you talk about this responsibility, because I would tell people that, you go, I have a responsibility for 150 families
Yeah.
that are relying on this job. So this isn't just about me getting a paycheck and leaving and going and enjoying myself. It's that responsibility for those families who they're getting their paycheck, they're taking care of their obligations and living their lives, and I have a part of that. And I will say I enjoyed it. Some people don't enjoy it, and so management or leadership is not for everybody,
Hmm.
but everybody should have the skills and use them in the areas that work for them.
Absolutely. And you hit something right, a nail on the head, as I like to say. Um, Leadership isn't for everyone, right? And not everyone needs to be a leader.
Hmm.
But self leadership is really important. And I believe that is for everyone, right?
Hmm.
Because even if we're not moving up, maybe we are making a lateral move, right? Maybe we don't want to lead other folks. Maybe that's not our thing. And that's
Hmm.
really good. Knowing that actually is brilliant, because you're not going to put yourself in a situation where you're setting yourself up for
Hmm.
a really, really difficult time, right? A really challenging time. Leading people isn't easy. um, but
And
it's,
that's where I say,
yeah.
your book, and I'm going to put this back up so people can see it again. We are interviewing Karina G. Sanchez in her recent book, Leadership for the New Female Manager. And I tell you, it is for men and women. It's for anybody that wants leadership or has the opportunity to use leadership. And even if you're not in that leadership role, uh, we always have opportunities for informal leadership. It might be a project team that you're a part of. It might be volunteering with your kids' school or some sort of a neighborhood project. There's always opportunities for leadership,
Yeah.
and having those skills and understanding what they are and how to use them.
In
I,
life, right? Leadership in
Absolutely.
life,
Yeah, because to
period.
me, leadership is not a destination. Leadership is a tool
Yeah.
to get something done.
It's actually a state of being, to be honest. It's really,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a state of being, right? I mean, and I speak to a lot of women who are also mothers. I'm like, are you a leader in your life with your kids? Of course, right? Like, who doesn't want to be a leader for their kids, right? So that their kids look up to them. And so leadership really is such a broad term, right? The first 7 chapters are dedicated to how to self lead. So that's awesome, right? Pick that up, right? Don't read any other chapters. Just read the self leadership chapters. It's all good.
Yeah, that's and those exercises.
Yeah.
I'm always a big advocate for self-discovery. So
Yeah.
whether you're taking discs or Myers-Briggs or
Woo, look at you
whatever
go with the
Enneagram,
terminology. Nice.
all of these different things give us insights.
Yeah.
And you talked about kind of what the style is that fits you, right?
Hmm.
Because it's not one size fits all. I can't just take what works for Karina as a leader and apply it directly to me, because it would be inauthentic.
Amazing word, right? Like I love that word authentic. I just said, God,
Mm,
you're just an honest leader, right? Just be
mhm,
honest.
mm,
I love that you mentioned the tests, the leadership style tests like Myers-Briggs and DISC. I'm actually using a different one in the book because I'm allowing folks to do a free one on the
mm, mhm,
internet, which is, really for the average person, it's awesome. But we don't want to have people pay for the different tests unless of course they want to, which they of course can. But
mhm,
one of the funny things is, and that's one of the reasons why I actually started with trying to figure out who you are and your leadership style,
mhm,
is because when I did one for me, I went, oh my God, my kid is D or whatever, and my daughter is CD, and I am, ABC. And I'm like, oh, this is why we're not getting each other.
mhm,
Right? So
mhm,
it not only helped me in with my team, it actually helped me at home with my kids. So I thought, why not start there? Why not help folks, right? Just figure things out as they're talking to people. Because
mhm,
what is it that we do every single day? Whether it's our job at home, whether we're going grocery shopping, we are constantly speaking with people, right?
mhm,
Really all about human interaction. So we need to understand how we show up and what our communication style is like so that we can communicate better with folks and get our
mhm.
point across.
Yeah, that communication, right? I mean, whether it's at home, whether it's at work, where do we get into trouble? When we don't communicate,
That's
or when
right.
we communicate the wrong things. It comes down to knowing what that message is. And again, if you know yourself, if you know what's your, and I love that you started with values, because if you get that core set, then the other decisions are easy, not
Yeah.
simple. Well, I'll say, yeah, they're not. It takes work, but there'll be a clear path.
Absolutely. Figuring out who you are as a person. And sometimes we think, oh my God, I have this figured out. I've been in leadership for, 15
Hmm.
years or whatever the situation might be, right? I don't need to figure out. I kind of know. Uh, it's funny. I come across people who have been in leadership position for 15 years and they still struggle in this area because it is not a static thing, right? We change as people all the time. We are not stagnant. We learn based on experience, based on life events, based on different things that are happening, the growth, our maturity. So we are constantly in a state of movement, in a state of change. So what might have worked for you, and I even know this when I used to do a lot of DISC assessments, which is a type of
Hmm.
leadership style. You're familiar with it, but just in case our audience isn't, we would do a lot of these within different corporations where we would figure out who, it's kind of like what letter. So the DISC style would give you 4 letters or a combination of two, and it would then guide you as to the type of leadership style that you are. So, what do you lead with? Do you lead with a D, maybe for a dominant style, or maybe are you a conscientious leader, right? So, it sort of gave us different ways to look at, okay, now when I speak to X person, oh, I get why they're constantly, like, okay, let's get stuff done. Let's go get stuff done. Oh, okay, they must be a
Hmm.
D. Great. And I'm a C, so I'm more of a conscientious person. I kind of would rather go around the room, ask everybody if they're okay, or maybe I am, another one of these, right? So it gives us an idea of of what do we lead with first. And so there's two sides to that coin, right?
Hmm.
When things are great, it's great, right? We lead with our style and we're like, yay, I'm doing all
Hmm.
right, everything is hunky-dory. What happens is when things are not so great, right? When we come across a challenge, or there really needs to be a problem that needs to be solved, or there's a conflict that you're dealing with, All of a sudden, your dominant style in a situation that was awesome was fantastic, but in a conflict situation, you might come across as really, really pushy. And so you will be seen, or the perception is that, oh my God, this person is so pushy, I can't even deal with that. And so
Mm,
your colleague or the person you're dealing with all of a sudden shuts down, and the communication stops in its tracks. No one is no one is resolving anything. There is no resolution, right? So these are the moments where, as a leader, if you are aware of your style and how you show up, you will very quickly will be able to go, oh, wait a minute, I need to change. I have to flex in this area a little bit because I am putting everybody off, or I am seeing that my direct reports are shutting down. There is no communication. And so when a person shuts down, especially in a office environment, what happens is there is a lack of innovation. No
mm,
one will have the courage to speak up. No one will have the courage to tell you what they think. And, there's a very interesting thing. There was a study that was done, and one of the main questions that came out of that study was, we wonder how many leaders out there actually understand when, or actually begin to understand or realize when the people around them stop telling them what's happening, because that is the moment when you've lost people.
mm,
So it's
mhm,
something that you're doing or not doing causes you now to shut people off, right? So that's even, even more difficult in an environment like we are in right now, where it's hybrid, where a lot of the times you're in front of the screen, right? You cannot tell. You don't have these emotional cues that you would generally get from people when you're face to face. So all of a sudden, you have no idea what's happening. And
mhm.
that's not a good place to be in.
Yeah, it's been a big change. I think we see different skill sets.
Yeah.
So, uh, leading a group of people in a single location, a physical location, is a skill set. And I've seen this in banking,
Yeah.
where you have a manager very effective at leading a team, and then gets promoted to lead a team in multiple locations. That's a whole different skill set.
Whole
Um,
different.
now you go to leading remotely,
Ugh.
and and some people I think were able to adapt well. Other people, they may have been great at that face to face when people are in their physical location,
Yeah.
but it doesn't always translate.
Well, and you know what's happening? Do you remember those first 2 months when the pandemic first hit? And I don't know if you were working within any corporations or if you were chatting with people. The first 2 months went like this. Okay, Scott. Okay, let's do a meeting. Let's do that coffee chat meeting. Wow, let's get on Zoom. We're going to do a coffee chat. Great. Everybody's excited for that coffee chat. After a couple of months, people are like, oh my God, there's going to be another coffee chat. Like, I can't handle any more coffee chats. Right. So we
Mhm,
are now changing from having to deal. So leaders are like, oh my God, okay, how do I engage my team? What do I do? How do I get them to be excited? Right.
mhm,
Because we started to dip, and a lot of people started to go, oh my God, this is not ending anytime soon. So great. So leaders are like, oh my God, Karina, I have 6 people on my team and I've lost them. I'm losing them. I can feel it. There is no engagement. I don't know how to reach them. I don't know how to get them excited. What do I do? And
mhm,
this is global, right? This was happening on a global scale. Every single leader was in that boat. So you've mentioned something awesome. You take one leader who is managing people within a physical location, and now they have folks in a bunch of different locations. And now you have another scenario where you have now folks in different locations completely all over the place, and they're online. Talk
mhm.
about level of difficulty that was just raised, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Raise the bar on level of difficulty.
Yeah, I remember that first summer. And when March came and the world changed and things got locked down, and then certain businesses, certain occupations were tagged as non-essential, like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, what a blow to your ego to know that your job is
Not
non-essential.
essential.
And I remember looking, and I was doing some retrospects on this as well. And so many businesses looked at it as a little vacation. They put a sign up in their window or on their website that says, "See you in 2 weeks." And I was like,
Right.
you're not just going to Europe for 2 weeks for vacation. And I actually did a review, a Q1 review at the 1st of April. So 2 years ago, right about now,
Yep.
I did a Q1 review. I think it was titled something like, "I want a refund. 2020 is broken."
Broken. So broken. And so you touched on it, something very, very, very important, and that's something that we're dealing with quite a bit now within the different corporations, at least in the ones that I consult with, is that, and I mentioned this right at the beginning of our podcast or our broadcast,
Hmm.
is this sort of pandemic flux where
Mm.
we have been dipping in and out emotionally, dipping in and out, and so we have a lot of burned out leaders, a lot of leaders who have reached a state where they can't manage the emotional strain, right? So there was a study done, another study. I love studies because it
I'm with
gives us
you,
an
and
idea,
I
right?
appreciate that because it puts some validity
Yes,
around that
yes.
interpretation. So
That's right. So
yes, yes.
absolutely. And it was something actually that I was just, and I heard this through another podcast with Amy Cuddy. Do you know Amy Cuddy? She does the Superwoman pose or the Superman
Mm,
pose. She
mhm.
does the power
Yes. Mhm.
posing.
Mhm.
And she was actually talking about a study that just came out of Harvard and Stanford. And it was a study that they've done across the globe. And they said that within this flux of the pandemic of ups and downs and everything is going to be okay. Oh no, everything's not going to be okay. Delta hit us and everybody went into a major depression and the level of
Mhm.
stress went up, and oh my god, we're picking up. Oh no, another Omicron hit. Oh my god,
Oh
and
boy.
now we're so it was just like this up and down. And so the leaders primarily were so burnt out, right, by this up and down and there was no end, and there still is no end. So this sort of like not knowing, right, this loss of power, not knowing when this will end, started to really affect people emotionally. And so
Mhm.
we're now seeing a lot of burnout, right, and it really is really critical for women, right, for that group. So if you're listening and you are a female leader, I just want to let you know you're not alone. This is
Mhm.
happening across the globe. It is something that we are all in. So, grabbing those mental health days and taking time out for yourself and, saying no to some stuff that maybe doesn't need to be done right now
Absolutely.
is okay,
Absolutely. And
right?
I would recommend that if you're not in a mastermind group or some sort of a leadership development group,
Yeah,
start your own. And
right.
here's the way to do it. um, buy 5 copies of the book and
Oh,
give
I
them
love
out to
that.
some friends. And whether you get together face to face, whether you get together on a video chat, uh, have a book club about this and help each other out.
Beautiful.
Because when we network the supercomputers between our ears, there's no limit to what we can do.
The connection. It's the human connection, Scott, that you've
Hmm.
just mentioned. That's another thing that we're talking a lot about in organizations. How do we reconnect as human beings in the work environment? We need connection, right? Human beings need connection, whether that's through a book club, like you mentioned. Great minds think alike. So
Hmm.
when you start to bring people of the same mindset together, you
Hmm.
pull each other out of this state, right? This state of loss of power, of unknowingness, not knowing where things are going. And give yourself a break. Give
Hmm.
yourself a break. It's okay not to be okay 100% of the time.
Right.
So to all of my female leaders out there, it's all right. We are going to get through this together.
Hmm. Yeah, for those of us uh, in the coaching consulting space, we love to quote Jim Rohn to
Oh,
say that we are the sum of the five people that we spend the
yes.
most time with. And I encourage people. Another great book, and I don't have it in the carousel, is Tribe of Millionaires.
Beautiful.
And I encourage people, after you've read Leadership for the New Leader, that you take advantage of that. But really take an inventory of who you're spending time with.
Hmm.
And I remember working with a consultant years ago that he said, Scott, if you go to lunch with somebody and you come back and you're depressed, if you don't like your job, if you don't like what you're doing, never go to lunch with that person ever again. But if you go to lunch with somebody and you come back and you are charged up and you're energized and you're solving problems and you're helping your customers out, buy that person lunch next time.
That's right. Wow. I love that. Absolutely, 100%. How quickly we can pull ourselves out just by surrounding ourselves with the right people. And
Mhm.
so at work, if you are a leader who is at work, schedule those coffee chats. But maybe, and this is something that I've started to see organizations do a lot more, is where they will actually put leadership committees, right? So a
Mhm.
lot of them are run by women now. So they have like a female leadership committee where they can bring in speakers, they can bring in keynotes, different types of training, all kinds of different help, when it comes to mental health and wellness, and how do we get through the day today, right? What do you do if you wake up and you're not having a great day? How do we build trust, right,
Mhm.
within the workplace? Because it's another thing that's a big topic right now, that I actually mentioned in the book.
Mhm.
How do we build trust with our teams? And how do we let them know that we trust them, right? So there's that big joke now going around, oh, I don't know if my employees are actually working. Well, I can tell if they're moving their mouse around or not.
This is in a lot of ways, I said the pandemic just accelerated what was already happening.
Right.
So people were already working from home to some
Hmm.
extent. The problem was the managers didn't trust them. And
Right.
I call it the clipboard syndrome, right?
Hmm.
It's is that if I see Karina walking around with a clipboard, at least she looks bit, I feel like I can trust, she's doing something. But if you're at home and you're remote and I don't see you walking around with a clipboard, how do I know you're doing anything?
I mean,
Well,
I'm
it's a
probably
lack of
sleeping.
trust from the leader to the employees, and that sets a bad culture.
Oh, really bad. Scott, it is to the point where, those are the people that, and so, people don't leave companies. People leave bad bosses. We know
Mm,
this,
that's
right?
beautiful. Hmm.
People leave bad bosses.
Right.
We have gotten to a stage now where if you cannot trust your employees, definitely your role shouldn't be in leadership, right?
Right.
Because you need to be the type of person that sets a standard, an example for your folks, and you have to be able to trust them. And the reality is, Scott, is that most people want to work. People don't want to sit around, or
Right.
do
Hmm.
nothing all day, right?
No.
Most people, if they have jobs, it's because they probably want to be there. Otherwise they wouldn't be, right, in
Hmm.
that company. They have a ton of options, especially now where all organizations are saying, oh my goodness, yes, you don't have to come into the office. Come work for us. You can work from home, right? So there's a lot of options.
Hmm.
The pandemic has done this one thing, that it really has changed the face of workplace and what we see as, the new norm, right? The way we would maybe like to work. And I'll be
Hmm.
honest with you, I'm probably the first one that would say I really enjoyed working from home.
Hmm.
I The thing is, I do a lot of interaction with people, even though it's on
Yes.
laptops. I do have my kids at home, so I have that one-on-one. There are folks who are, on their own. So those are the folks you need to be checking in on as a leader,
Hmm.
right? And those are the folks that you need to make sure that your team is checking in on. Because if they are home by themselves and they don't have a lot of interaction, then you want to make sure that they are okay. You want to create that culture of care. right?
Hmm.
That culture of, okay, I trust you and I care about you and I want to make sure that you're okay. And, is there anything that you need? It's just a simple question. It's one
Hmm.
question. Are
And
you okay?
as we wind this one down, and Karina, I can't believe the time is going so fast. It's just
So
a
fast.
fascinating discussion with you. Thank you for spending time here on Amazon. And I just want to remind people the book is in the carousel,
Love the
Leadership for the
carousel.
New Female Manager. It is good for men, women, and maybe you're a longtime leader. I will tell you, you've got something to learn. And if you don't have anything to learn, then you don't belong in your job. Okay. All right. So that's a strong enough opinion for the moment. But uh, as you were talking about checking up on people, and I want to kind of wind up with this, and then about how
Mhm.
people can get a hold of you, hire you
Absolutely.
as a speaker, as a coach, and but you talk about checking up on people,
Mhm.
and I want to get your point of view on emotional intelligence.
Mhm. Oh, Scott, we only have 5 minutes. What are you doing? Oh, such a
I
big
told you the time went
topic.
too fast. Yeah.
I know,
Mhm.
and I mean, I know that we could be talking here for a few hours, but
Mm.
no, just read the book instead. Emotional intelligence, goodness, I think the I'm going to say one thing really just to sum this up. We are all adults here, right? No one needs to be at a stage where we need to babysit anyone. And honestly, if that is the kind of job that you're looking for, then you need to look into daycare, right? This is not where you want to be, right?
Beautiful.
So we need to just realize that everyone is responsible for themselves. And you will know very, very quickly if someone isn't. You can tell. It doesn't take very long. So I always say, use your street smarts, right? There is a sense, an intuitive sense that you literally have about people. And if you don't, just look at the work that they deliver because that will tell you whether or not this person actually belongs on your team or not. It's that simple, right? um, and so just to sort of like sum up with this, you've got to trust your people, you've got to care about your people.
Hmm.
You don't want to be you want to be that type of leader that we mentioned earlier, that people would follow. They would go switch companies because you've left the building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so important. I love these things about the self evaluation. We've talked about so many different things. One of the questions that I always like to ask myself when I was in that role is, especially when you have a titled role as a leader, and the
Mhm.
question I would ask myself is, would they follow me if they didn't have to?
Right. $1 million question, isn't it? Would they
Mm,
follow any of us if we didn't have the title? And so that's a very good one to sort of self reflect on, right? How do I show up? And do I inspire people to be the best versions of themselves?
mhm,
Or do I teach them to be note takers? Right? Because, and that actually is literally a chapter in the book, and I can't remember the exact title, but I believe it's Leader as a Coach, right?
mhm.
Because this is something that is
Very
so
important.
important. If you can be that person for your direct reports, for your team, where you coach them through the different scenarios, the different challenges, the difficulties, whatever it is that they're dealing with, you might do all the work up front, but in the long run, this will pay off because in
Mhm,
the long run, they will do the work and you will be able to step aside and just watch them shine. And I'll tell you something else. I don't think anyone belongs in leadership if they don't want to see the person that they lead shine brighter than they do.
mhm,
That is so important. And we are so afraid to allow people to be better than even us. We see that to be very threatening. And it isn't, and it shouldn't be, right? Our goal should
mhm.
be daily to help others excel and surpass our skills. That's the type of leader I aspire to be.
That is so beautiful, and is a great place to wind up. Um, Karina, again, thank you so much for joining us here, for sharing about your book and the journey, and really some valuable tips today for so many folks. Leadership for the new female manager, good for men, good for women, good for students, good for people late in the career, early in their career, anywhere. You can use leadership everywhere. Karina, how do people get a hold of you, and how can they hire you to speak or to coach or to level up their game?
Sure. Um, simple website, actually, first, middle, and last. So KarinaGSanchez.com. All my information is on the website. The book links, I mean, you can get it here, right here on Amazon. It's pretty simple. But if you've happened to miss it, head out to the website. You'll be able to get a hold of me. All my information is there.
Well, that's perfect. Well, thank you so much again. I'm going to send you into the green room. Stand by. I will be right with you.
Thank you, Scott.
Well, isn't that just fabulous? Karina G. Sanchez. So Karina G. Sanchez, Sanchez.com. Uh, Her book is highlighted in the carousel, Leadership for the New Female Manager. Thank you for everyone for joining. And Colleen, great to see you here. Thank you so much. And thank you to Natalie for following me here on Amazon. This has been a lot of fun. And we're going to wind this broadcast down. And I'll just tell everybody to have a fabulous day.